Hello and welcome back to what should be the final episode of the Leo Jaymz Type TL Telecaster type guitar build. We now have everything assembled. We finished the neck and the body. Everything's put together. We just have to string it up and set up today. So that's where we're going to go. Off to the bench. So once again, I must apologize for any of the outdoor noise. It's a warm mid-July day here, and the window's gonna have to be open. So we this morning put one more final coat of boiled linseed oil on the neck. We haven't sanded it down yet. We might do that later. It feels pretty smooth actually at the moment, so we're just gonna leave it. I can always put that on later. About 2 episodes ago, we had some technical difficulties, and I had the thing all strung up with the strings and that, and I decided, well, since I had to redo part of the video, I would take it all apart, and I had forgotten that we needed to file and polish the frets. We didn't have to do much filing. It's a brand new neck, but there was just a couple of spots here and there that needed just a little bit of a touch up. Anyway, we went about it. I took it back apart, and when I did, I found out that the strings that Leo sent us were not color coded on the spools. They were all silver, and I had it all wired up, and I thought, well, I'll just carefully take the strings off and put them back on. And then I found out that the 2 skinniest strings I had reversed. So the skinniest string was on the second, and the second skinniest was on the first. So, of course, with the 6 in a row tuners, the one string was going to be too short. So we are going to instead put on these British made Roto Sound. They are electric, super light, 9 through 42. I like a nice light string, so that's what we're going to use on it. Not a paid promotion. I just have been looking for alternate strings, and these British made ones were available, so I decided to give them a shot. I have put them on both my other Strats. I like them, so we're going to check them out anyways. So the first thing we're going to do then is string the guitar up, and then we are going to start working on the pickup height, the string height, double check the relief in the neck. It seems pretty good. There is just a slight bit of bow. It is fairly flat, and I like a nice low action, so we'll just have to see if we can get the low action and the slightest relief to work out. When you're doing a setup, sometimes it's a bit of give and take, compromise, especially with these 3-barrel bridge saddles. So you have to kind of, when we're doing the intonation, be a little forgiving with that. We might have to do a little compromise, but that's all part of playing guitar. So let's start with scissors. So as I say, these are like 9 to 42. Probably gonna have to go a little lower than that, eh? So the Roto Sounds are color coded. So we are going to go with the blues are obviously the thickest. It will go blue, white, red, blue, white, red. So we're going to, you should really be using safety glasses when doing this. Make sure that you hold it away from yourself when you let them spring. And seeing as that they go blue, white, red, when you take out the two blues, it's rather obvious which one is the thickest. Now there's a little hole in the bottom of the bridge here. Put that through, bring it up. When stringing the guitar, you make sure that your spool is seated properly up through the nut, and you want to go 2 spindles past the one you're putting it in. We're wanting to go in here, so we're going to go past that one and just past that one, and that is where we are going to cut it. Making sure to hold on to both sides of the string when you snip it, so that when you do cut it, you don't lose the tail. Here we go. The string goes just beyond the second one. Now we're going to put the tail through the spindle, push it right through, push it right through, and leave just a little bit, like about 1/8 of an inch of a tail sticking out, and then we're going to crink the string. Then we're going to grab the winder and start winding. When the tail comes around the first time, you go over top of the tail with the windings, and then from there on in you go below. Once the crinked part comes back around, go below and keep going below, and try to keep the windings going down into the headstock. That is so that when we get it to the tightening up point, we have a little bit of a break in the angle here, so that it stays seated in the nut. The other end, you double check to make sure that it is in the groove that is in the barrel. And we're all strung up now. Okay. Oh, drink. Now, the string trees. But at first I have to eyeball them up, because the 2 holes that were put in the headstock to begin with were in the wrong place. So I went and made 2 new string holes, which are in the wrong place. So now I will have to make new holes in the right place, and for that I will need my special screwdriver. So this is not a paid promotion, but these little Stanley miniature screwdrivers just saved my tail putting in the string trees. The fact that you can lean on this here top part and turn with your hand gives you a lot of extra pressure, and I was able to get the string trees planted, and I used the ittiest bittiest miniest blade, which is very skinny, to basically pilot out the holes. So not a paid promotion, but if you get a chance, grab them, and if you can make use of them. That said, now we are at the point of, we've got the strings on. We should probably try and bring it up close to tune, so that we can then check the string height and check from there how we want to proceed. Okay, so it's not in tune, but it's close enough that we can check the action at the 12th fret in millimeters. And I have a feeling already that this is really high. So here we go. We're about 3.5 millimeters. So this is going to have to come way down. 3.5, 2.5, 3, 3.25, 3.25. So we are way, way high. looking down the neck has just a little bit of relief in it. So what we do is grab our miniature Allen key and go to the bridge, off to the bench. And there's a little Allen type key, hex key, in each side of the barrels that looks like this. And once we loosen them, that will bring the barrel down closer to the bridge itself. Now, because we are loosening them and going down, there won't be any extra pressure on the strings, so we don't have to loosen off the strings. If we have to raise them, then you're going to put a lot of extra pressure on the strings, and you're going to have to watch that because, well, you don't want to snap them. But because we are loosening them, they're going to go down into the body. I'm just going to bring them all the way down, and then we will measure them again at that point. So now I've brought the saddles down pretty much to the base, and we are still getting about 2 to 2.5 millimeters at the 12th. So I think my next idea is going to be to do a truss rod adjustment, and we're going to tighten the truss rod and try and bring the head down a bit. Usually the truss rod adjustment doesn't really affect the action, but it will do a very minuscule amount. So there's where we're going to go next. In order to do that, we are going to loosen off all the strings, because we are going to be putting extra pressure on the strings when we tighten. If we're loosening, that puts less pressure on the strings. You can do it a little bit that way, but you're still having a lot of pressure on the truss rod, and even though you're loosening it, you are affecting you're going to put pressure on the truss rod even by loosening it. Get the other Allen key, which is your truss rod adjustment. I'm going to remove the 2 strings nearby. We want to tighten. We have to go a fair ways with this one, so I'm going to give it a good half turn anyways. And looking down the neck, it is fairly straight. So now let's bring it back up to tune and check everything over again. So I've been working on this setup for a little while here. We've messed with the truss rod, we messed with the saddles to try and get the proper string height. We're almost at that point, but now I believe the nut is too high, and it's going to need a little adjustment anyways, because we're getting the sitar on the second string for sure, third one possibly. So what I'm going to do is spend a little time doing some research, figuring out how to do that, and then I will come back and tell you how it happened. But it's just going to be a boring, frustrating video to watch. So so I'll be back in a few minutes. And sound good? See you then. Okay, so please excuse the fans and everything, but the nut is way too high because there is just way too much movement in this here. We've got the capo on the second fret, and we're measuring from there up to the headstock nut, and that is just way too much room. You want that to be just about touching. So like that other cheapy Strat I bought, the nut is way too high, And hence, whenever you make a cord in here, everything goes sharp because you're pushing way too much bend in the strings. So we have to remove and sand down the nut, which is something I wasn't really planning on doing, but the problem is that with this being so high, we had to lower the bridge so low just to get the proper measurement in around the 12th fret, because the strings were on such an angle like that, in that angle. So the only way to do this is to remove the nut and sand down the bottom. We could cut deeper grooves, but that's not going to help. As it turns out, we're getting a little sitar action on the second skinniest string, so we're going to have to take a look at it and see at that point. Possibly we can just fill in the groove a bit with a bit of glue, because what happens is the groove is too wide and the string is vibrating inside the groove. So there's where we're going. Yeah, I was hoping not to have to do this, but I guess we're gonna have to. So let's remove the nut. So how we remove the nut is that we take our miniature screwdriver, get it in just underneath, and slowly, cautiously pry a bit. And it comes loose. So, gonna make sure that this here is clean. A little bit of just your basic white glue will fix that. I mean, reaffix the nut in, but we're gonna have to take off probably about 2 millimeters off the bottom of that with probably some 180 sandpaper. What I'm probably gonna do is take a ruler or a straight flat edge and put a little ink mark across there. What did we want to do? Probably about 2 millimeters, because remember, whatever you take off here, you have to take double off. To make this go down 1 millimeter, this is going to have to come down 2 millimeters. So there's where we go. So what I've done is I've put a little line across the bottom of the nut with a pen. Looks like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand it until that there line disappears on a nice flat piece of wood, so we know that it's going to be level. And then we will reinstall this in the neck and check it out and see how our level sits at that point. It's always better to do a little bit now and a little bit later. I know I said I'm going to have to take 2 millimeters off, but let's take 1 millimeter off and check it. It's easier to do that than to try and put something back on. So basically all I'm going to do is just put it here on top of this 180 grit sandpaper and slowly rub it back and forth, keeping it as level as I possibly can until that blue line disappears, and then we'll put it back in. As you can see, it picks up some of that it comes off fairly easily. because it's just plastic. So there's the amount of nut that we shaved off the bottom. There's still a little bit of a blue mark in one spot here, but we're going to check it now and see where it sits, just because. Now, once you get to this point and you go, oh no, I forgot which way the nut went. There's a fat end and a skinny end. So it can only go in there one way. So we're not going to glue it down, because all we're going to do is double check how it sits. And for that, the pressure of the strings will hold it in place long enough for us to figure that out. So we'll bring it up to tension. We don't have to really bring it to tune. All we need to do is just get enough tension on so it's seeming like it might be in tune. Because all we're wanting to do is make sure there's enough pressure on it to be able to, the ends of those strings are sharp. Just saying. Okay, so it's just a rough tune. Now we put the capo back on the second fret. And yeah, we still want to do more. But at least we know we didn't go too far. So we're probably going to go about the same distance again. I'll put another mark on it. We'll bring it down more. When you're loosening the strings, because we're not changing the strings, we're just doing setup, make sure you always loosen the skinny ones first, because there's a lot of pressure on these bigger ones. They take a lot of pressure. You take all the pressure off these, you're going to put a lot more pressure on the small ones, and guess what? Yeah, right. Kaboomba. We don't need a new piece of sandpaper because it's plastic and hardly anything comes off of it. But if we take off what we did scrape off here the last time, then we'll know how much we're taking off this time too. Yeah. Pens suck. But the Sharpie's probably going to be way too big. Let's test it and see. Looks like the Sharpie's just right. We should probably also put a Sharpie mark on the other side, because I only did ink on the one side last time, and what happened was I of course made the bottom beveled, so I had to also make it flat. So when using Sharpie, we made a much more prevalent line to be able to see on both sides. And once we get that removed, we should be okay. That should be enough. But so you just hold the nut as level as you can, rub back and forth, and you will see the buildup of plastic right off the bat. Okay. Oh, drink. There's your ASMR stuff. So now we will move that aside, and one more try. Put this back in, bring her up again. And capo just beyond the 2nd fret, and oh, that's really close. This end is good. This end could maybe take a little bit more. We don't want to do any more at the skinny end, that's for sure. There's a little bit of movement, but not much. That's pretty low. It's worth doing this over and over so that you know you get it right. That's why we do a little bit at a time. So now the larger end only, so we can just sort of put it across the side here and only do the larger end and not much. Okay, we are there. Might even have gone a little bit low, but personally I like lower than higher. If it comes to it, we would be able to put something underneath the nut to bring it up a bit if need be. But if we don't need be, then we don't need be. Now let's double check our action, which is really low now, but that's okay because now that this is low, we can raise the saddles and make a much better level. So at the 12th, yeah, we've gone down to like 1.25. 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, 1.75, and 1.75. So the top 3 are okay. The bottom 3 need to come up a little bit. And so now we use our small Allen wrench in the lugs here to tighten, which is going to push this lug down and bring the saddle up. So as we tighten that Allen wrench, the saddle will come up, but that is going to put more pressure on these strings, so we're going to be working against them. We want to loosen off the wider 3 strings. Okay, and then we'll do about a 2-turn tighten, 2-turn tighten, 2-turn tighten. Now we're just doing this and that one because those are the ones that need to come up. The other 3 were fine. Each one of these barrel saddles have a lug on either side. This first lug is going to do the first string, the second lug is going to do the second string. Once you get a good close look at it, you'll understand what I'm saying there. So re-tensionize our strings a bit. Just enough tension. It doesn't have to be in perfect tune for this. And that's about 2 millimeters. 175, 175. It's 175 to 2. 175, 175. I like a nice low action on my guitars, so 175 is good. A lot of people do a little more like 2. This top one's going to come down just a touch because it was at 2. And because I'm loosening it, left-handers, you can do that without loosening the string. Now let's give these things a little bit of a tug and check the action again at the 12th. 175, 175, 175, 175, 175, right across the board. Now, next thing we're going to do is check the action of the, not the action, but the height of the pickups. Now, there was one guy I saw, he was, I watched him on YouTube, he was a techie who did guitars for different people, and he always put this one up to so it was almost touching. I'm thinking I'm going to try that because the actual pickup is below this metal cover. That's a metal cover that goes over the pickup, which looks like the bottom one with the black and the dots. But survey says about 2 millimeters is what you want. But as I say, this here one, the actual pickup is underneath, so I'm gonna leave that one where it is. I put it so that it's just about touching. That's, well, that might be about 1.5 millimeters. And that's good enough for me, because this one did seem a little weak when we were testing it earlier. Now, you know what? Next is intonation. So now we've got it in tune. I'm going to go over each fret and see if I have any buzzing anywhere. So what I'm getting is a little bit of buzzing between the 12th and the 15th. 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. Right along there. Now that is most likely going to be relief, because the neck has just a little bit of bow in it. It could probably use just a little bit more. So if we loosen off the truss rod, the head comes out this way and gives us just a little bit more relief here. It's either that or we raise, why don't we just raise the saddles another little bit. 175 is pretty low, so if we go to 2, we should be okay there. Once again, the small Allen wrench on the saddles. I'm going to give the bottom 3 or 4 of them about 3/4 of a turn, and then we will have to, of course, retune it. And so we've got the string height, we've got the nut height, we've got the pickup set where we think it's going to want to be, we've got the saddles where we believe they're going to want to be. Everything is getting ready now. We have to do the intonation, but I don't want to do that until I get this nut glued in, and that I'm going to let sit overnight, and it will be tomorrow just like. Good morning. Good morning. Morning coffee. So, intonation, the final step before we plug it in and see if it's going to even work. So what we want to basically do is make sure that when we are tuning it, we get it into tune, and we want whatever the tuner says at open to be the same when we push down the string at the 12th fret. So that is intonation. So we first off bring it into tune, which it is. Now we push down at the 12th fret and it goes sharp. Make sure that we are doing this properly. It's a little low because the strings are still not stretched in. Okay, so that is a D. D because I have this tuned down to D. D, G, C, F, A, D. And that gives me a D. And then I push down at the 12th and I have a D. Not a D, a D. Make sure that the tuner sets back to 0. And I have a D, a D. Push down at the 12th. And it goes sharp. So what we want to do is move the barrel from the saddle back, and that will hopefully bring this into a D. Not a D, a D. And we do that by the screw on the end of the bridge. And when we loosen that screw, I believe it will pull back. Now that's going to put more pressure on the string. It's going to change the tuning. So after you move this a bit, then you want to retune it, open, and try it again. And actually we are going to want to tighten it to pull the barrel back. And then we will retune it because it will obviously have gone sharp, and it has. We'll loosen that off a bit, give it a little wiggle. Get it into the perfect D. And then at the 12th, it is still sharp. So we will tighten it more. Retune it. And that is a perfect D at the 12th. It's a sharp D. Is that the way I want to go, or is it the other way? Let's do a little investigation. So you start at the low E, which is my D. And it is there. And it goes sharp. So we're going to bring this one back. Now, being that these are the skinnier strings, we're going to want to down tune them a bit. Get your open string in tune, and at the 12th, that is pretty much right on. Now the A. And because there is two strings on the same barrel, because the one barrel covers both strings, you're going to have to get that barrel into an in-between, because you're not going to get it perfect on each one. If you do, it's a fluke. But usually one is going to be slightly different than the other. So you're going to just have to get in between the two to try and get as close as you can. That's where you're going to have to compromise a little bit because of the 3-barrel type of saddles. If you had the 6 individual ones, then you could do each one individually, like on the Stratocaster. I can do that. But on these double string barrel type saddles, you're just going to have to compromise and get it in between. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll be right back. So with a long drawn out process, we've got it. We've got the D and the G very close. One's right on, one's a little flat. Then we have one that's a little sharp and one that's right on. Then we have one that's a little flat and one that's right on. So you gotta kind of tweak it a little bit here and a little bit there, but I think we're good where we are for now. As I say, the strings are still stretching in. It's a brand new guitar. It's gonna take a little bit to settle. We're probably gonna have to double check it maybe next week and do a little tweaking on it, but I'm good with it where it is. Don't wear out your batteries. Okay, I'm just gonna tune it a few more times, and then we're gonna plug it in. And now we dance. Do. And so we plug it in. To our miniature practice amp. And we move the microphone down in front of the speaker. And at that point, we will turn it on. I will probably be doing mime to you at that point, but that's what'll happen. Power. Neck pickup. And so there you have it. This concludes the build of my Leo Jaymz Type TL Telecaster type guitar. It's all together, works fine, everything's good. That might have been a shabby version of the Rain song, but I haven't played it in a long time. That was the first time I tried it in a little while, so thank you very much. I'll show you a couple of pictures here at the end, and we'll catch you next time. So, do I recommend you buy and build one? Yeah, if that's your thing. If not, not. Or buy it and send it to me and I'll build it for you. I did enjoy it. It was a little bit of hassle here and there. The finishing was the biggest part. You know, I spent like almost 2 weeks. Of course, I don't do it daily. So, you know, a couple of weekends where I would finish it and sand it and make sure everything was in the right spot and carve out the headstock. But yeah, I would do it again. So that's it. I finally got myself a Type TL Telecaster type guitar. Thank you for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what I did right, what I did wrong. I know I do things wrong. I'm not a luthier. I'm just an old guy with too much time on my hand. Check out the other videos on my channel. See if maybe something else might interest you there. And until that, on to the next project. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.